going to be in the house. Had no idea Todd Anderson was going to play that deck this weekend. As we do begin here, Bernal starting off with a Flooded Strand.
Yeah, the amount that was in the room was really surprising.
I'm inclined to agree with you, man. I did not expect to see this many people playing. We even have one in the top 8 here with Edward Fender playing that deck. So Arid Mesa here from Taylor. That's where he's going to get things started. He's going to go down to 19.
And again, both players with access to one another's deck lists, as this is the elimination round, so I'd expect both players to be very mindful of the presence of the non-basic hate cards in each other's deck.
Scale of 1 to 10, your thoughts on that mountain?
I'm not a huge fan of Asian cards for the most part. It's a little too flashy for me, but it is nice. I like the artwork, certainly.
Grim Lavamancer going to get the show started here for Taylor. See Bernal with just his Flooded Strand. Could fire off a Source of Plowshares if he wants to, but he's just going to take a draw. Does draw an Island. See if he wants to play that. He's also got a Tundra in the grip here. Again, does not have to expose himself really to non-basics, any of the Price of Progress nonsense that can happen, which is one of the benefits of his deck being able to play so many basics. But Swords is just going to take care of the Grim Lavamancer. We'll see if this does resolve, if there will be a daze or anything of that nature. But bye-bye Lavamancer. Taylor will go back up to 20.
You can see Joe not wanting to give Dennis a window to play an island on tap and potentially spell pierce that plow.
Taylor going to sacrifice Blue to Delta. Going to go back down to 19. Might see the old basic island here.
And I've talked about this several times when we've had Blue-Red Delver on camera. The issues with the mana base, it actually oddly has one of the worst mana bases in Legacy in my mind, as it wants to get a mountain and an island to play around Wasteland and to set up Price of Progress, but it has so many single blue and single red colored spells that the deck often struggles to use all of its resources efficiently in the situations where it gets island and mountain. Now Dennis here has to be mindful of back to basics, so he especially needs to be going and getting those basic lands, but you can see he has a Ponder in his hand, for example, and he can't cast Delver and Ponder in the same turn to set this up because he has a mountain in play.
That is one of the problems with the deck. Flooded Strand going to get sacrificed here. And down to 19 goes Mr. Bernal. We'll see what land he wants to search up, or does he?
Thinking.
Yeah, he decides he does not want to. So he's going to draw another copy of Flooded Strand. Goes back up to 20. Looks like both players are okay with that decision. Swords of Plowshares is going to take care of Delver before it even has the attempt to flip. So bye-bye Delver. So a couple timely removal spells here from Bernal, making sure that Taylor can't get any offense going with his creatures.
Yeah, and these one-for-one trades are really powerful for Joe because his draw steps pound for pound are so much better than Dennis's. Dennis's has a lot of low-impact cards in the matchup, such as Chain Lightning, Lightning Bolt. He even has a single 4-bolt in his deck, so if Joe is able to just keep his head above water, he can get to a spot where he starts deploying Stoneforge Mystic, Jace, and similar cards.
Goblin Guy going to reveal a Lingering Souls. It's not a land for Bernal, but it's still pretty gosh darn good, as it can do a nice work on the Goblin Guy that has hit play. Bernal's going to go down to 18. Taylor in the second main phase is going to cast a Ponder. He's going to take a look at the top 3 cards. Brainstorm, Snapcaster Mage, and a Mystery card, the third one.
I believe a Brainstorm, pretty juicy Ponder here.
Not the worst. See how Taylor wants to set things up. Looks like this Ponder will be a keep. So he's going to take that card. He's going to pass the turn back. You see a Snapcaster Mage in his hand right now as well. Lingering Souls, of course, we knew that was coming for Joe, unless he did fetch it away with Flooded Strand. But why do that? He's got Goblin Guy covered.
Right.
Joe able to sacrifice Flooded Strand, go down to 17, search out another basic. He is looking for kind of a Marsh Flats type card now so that he can be able to just get a basic to flashback Lingering Souls.
Yeah, this is a lot of discipline from Joe here. He's not getting the Underground Sea just yet. He wants to see if he's going to have an opportunity to, like you said, draw a Marsh Flats or a Swamp and naturally be able to flashback Lingering Souls. Maybe find other things to do with his mana altogether and not worry about that Lingering Souls. But he doesn't want to commit another non-basic land to play until he absolutely has to.
Spell Pierce targeting Lingering Souls. I think Joe's just going to say, that's fine, I'll let that go. No reason for me to force a will that. I can force a will a more important card. So that'll take care of the first half of Ton Martell's Invitational card. You see Bernal going to shuffle up Taylor's deck, present it back over to him, and we'll see what Taylor's able to draw now, since he did have to shuffle away what was a pretty good Ponder.
Yeah, certainly a Snapcaster Mage in this spot being able to flashback either Ponder or Spell Pierce would have been really nice, but Dennis had really no choice there but to Spell Pierce that Lingering Souls.
We're going to start with an attack for 2. Brainstorm. The card revealed here from Bernal. Wouldn't be surprised if he wants to keep that one too. Hard to want to let go of Brainstorm. Goblin Guy's going to deal 2. We'll see if Taylor has any action in his second main phase. And looks like he's just going to pass the turn back here. So Bernal's going to untap his 4 lands. Again, you do see the Brainstorm that was revealed. He's going to draw that to go on Forcible and Jace the Mind Sculptor. And he's going to start his turn off with the fantastic blue instant. Jace, Force, and Stoneforge Mystic are the cards added to the grip.
This is pretty nice for Joe as he can cast Stoneforge Mystic post-combat or post-Brainstorm here, shuffle away some of the dead weight without having to commit his Flooded Strand yet. Again, Joe doesn't know if he wants to fetch a basic with that or his Underground Sea, potentially flashback Lingering Souls later in the game. So being able to shuffle without using his fetch land here is pretty nice. And of course, that Stoneforge Mystic also threatens quite a bit.
Okay, pretty nice too. Pretty easy decision on which cards to put back. Since he did draw duplicates of Force of Will and Jace, it kind of just makes sense to put those guys back.
Right.
Normally Brainstorms are very difficult. Not saying that one was easy, but on the easier side as far as Brainstorms are concerned.
Joe also wants to shuffle here in part because there's no lands that he can set on the top to draw off of Goblin Guide. So he wants a full reshuffle here for a variety of reasons.
Umezawa's GT looks like it may be the choice of the day, and that will be the choice over Batterskull for Mr. Bernal. So GT will go to the hand along with that Jace and that Force of Will. And it looks like Joe is more than comfortable passing back to Taylor with that Flooded Strand at the ready to control his draw step, should Goblin Guide not provide something that he wants to keep.
Yeah, and some people may wonder why he's going to get Jitte here. First of all, so many bolts in Dennis's deck. Reasonable chance your Stoneforge Mystic doesn't survive. And secondly, remember, Joe has that Lingering Soul still in his graveyard. So reasonable hit for him to be able to flash back, hard cast Jitte, and try to take over the game that way.
Swords to Plowshare is the top card that is revealed from Goblin Guide. Goblin Guide is showing us all the hits here, not lands going to hand. And I think if you're Dennis, you prefer that he was drawing lands as opposed to the cards that he's revealing right now, because they are all really good.
This Esper Stoneblade deck is so good at using additional lands with cards like Jace, and with being able to draw a card like Batterskull. The Blue-Red Delver deck has a bunch of soft permission and dazes and spell pierces. So if I was in Dennis's seat, I'm actually kind of happy to reveal very good spells over lands because this Esper Stoneblade deck can do a lot with that extra mana.
See a Chain Lightning going to take down the Stoneforge Mystic after combat. Something that, again, Taylor felt like he didn't need to kill, but this is exactly why we saw Joe search up Umezawa's Jitte. A castable equipment. Had to be Batterskull, might be stuck in his hand right now. Looks like Joe wants to lead off maybe with the swords on the Goblin Guide.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me again. Joe is trying to just wait as long as possible to avoid having to get an Underground Sea with that Flooded Strand.
And so swords will take care of the 2/2 haster. Taylor will gain a little bit of life, and now Joe is going to sacrifice Flooded Strand. Looks like we're going to go searching for the Underground Sea. That's what we're going to do. He's opening himself up a little bit to price of progress here.
But Dennis is very low on resources. It's unlikely that that's going to kill him here.
And the flashback of Lingering Souls, this is going to be a Snapcaster Mage that's going to be able to target a Spell Pierce. So this is a really nice turn here for Dennis.
Joe's going to fight over this and force back and just try to set up a Umezawa's Jitte on one of these 1/1 flyers and take over the game that way.
So Force of Will removing Jace will take care of the Snapcaster Mage. Spell Pierce, of course, never gets flashback because Snapcaster does get countered. So now the 2 Lingering Souls tokens are in play. Taylor draws a card, he passes back, and predictably, Bernal's going to cast Umezawa's Jitte, equip. And there's a Lightning Bolt to take care of the first token. We're going to need one more burn spell now if you're a Dennis.
But then again, again, it's worth noting Joe's draw steps are so much more powerful on average.
Taylor going to pass the turn back. Bernal going to equip. And there's a Snapcaster Mage. Good, clean living. Target Lightning Bolt, kill your token. A little bit of frustration maybe here from Bernal as Taylor with back-to-back rips, making sure that the Jitte does not go active. Now Snapcaster coming into the red zone. Bernal going to go down to 9. He takes a draw. It's a Flooded Strand. Now what is this going to be? That's a Supreme Verdict. So he's just going to trade 1 for 1, wants to keep the life total high. The problem here is that price of progress is actually pretty good against him now.
Yep. He's taking a lot of hits.
Joe draws a back to basics, quite poor in this situation, actually better against Joe than against Dennis, as Dennis is going to draw a card. Looks like he draws a Force of Will. Bernal has a couple of lands, that back to basics, and a mystery card. Looks like it might be Jace.
Yeah, the thing is, Dennis committing that 5th land to the table is a pretty loud sign that Force of Will might be here. Joe was trying to wait, but his hand doesn't really allow him to do anything else, so...
So Taylor does hardcast Force of Will to take care of that Jace. Draws, he passes the turn back. Bernal is going to take a draw. Polluted Delta. So a little bit of draw-go action here between the players. Bernal will take a draw. It's Plains. Going to put an island in play, pass the turn back. Bolt the draw here for Taylor. Again, Bernal has to be very careful. He is close to dying as he draws another back to basics. And now we see a lightning bolt going upstairs. This has got to be an uneasy feeling if you're Joe. Bernal's going to go down to 6. Taylor's going to draw a card.
Joe choking on his main deck back to basics. He's out for this tournament.
There's a chain lightning. Bernal's going to go down to 3. It only takes one more, and one more is what Taylor's going to have.
Wow.
Price of Progress. Going to win this one. A card that's typically pretty poor against Bernal, but back-to-back peels. Bolt in a Snapcaster flashing back Bolt doesn't let GT get active, and Dennis Taylor able to steal game number 1 as we're going to bring it back to the booth here, my friends. It was a very entertaining game number 1. Did not expect that result.
That was a theft.
Yes.
That was I mean, it had to be back-to-back Bolt Snapcaster Mage. Even Bolt probably, Joe still has enough breathing space to not have to use his Supreme Verg. He takes less damage, so some very impressive draws there from Dennis.
Yeah. It's trivia time. 3-month giveaway is what we'll be doing right now. Patrick's going to answer the question. Rules are as follows. Make sure you do have your Twitter open. You're going to hashtag your answer with the hashtag of SCG Premium. Make sure you're following at SCG Live as well so we can get the winner, the premium, over to him. He's going to fire away the question, and then once our quarterfinals over, we will announce the winner as well as the answer to the question. So it's about accuracy, not speed, because we will be drawing one of the people who do get it correct from the group of winners. And we'll announce them as the winner. Mr. Sullivan.
Joe Bernal, our overall 1 seed. Esper Stoneblade Master. Expert on the deck, plays it all the time.
Yep.
We talked at length about this tournament, about the change he made to this deck. Name the enchantment that he added to punish non-basic lands.
If you can't name that enchantment, again, hashtag SCG Premium for your answer. Make sure you're following at SCG Live. And again, we will announce the winner at the conclusion of our quarterfinal round. So it's about accuracy, not speed, as we're going to head back to the match here. Joe Bernal down a game. Can't say I expected that. His deck quite good against Price of Progress. Ends up losing to it in a little bit of backwards fashion there. Did have to search out some non-basic. Wasn't able to find a Marsh Flats for his Swamp. Maybe a little bit of frustration here for Joe, but I think he does understand that, hey, I think I may have gotten a little unlucky there. That can happen.
Yeah, and you can see, going back to the game, why Joe was trying to wait as long as possible to find a Swamp or a Marsh Flats. He was really hesitant to sacrifice that Flooded Strand, and for good reason. Every non-basic land he added to the board there was additional exposure to Price of Progress, which is the card that ended up killing him.
Let's take a look here at Bernal's sideboard first. He has an Explosives, 1 Pithing Needle, Sword of Feast and Famine, 2 copies of Meddling Mage, a Notion Thief, Flusterstorm, Misdirection, 2 Swan Songs, and 4 copies of Thoughtseize. Of these cards, which ones stick out to you?
I really like Misdirection, as Dennis has bolts and creatures, so
Okay.
a lot of upside there. I like the Engineered Explosives, as Dennis has a lot of small creatures in his deck. I potentially, not positive, I potentially like Notion Thief, as Dennis does have Brainstorm, so you have that possibility there as well. And other than that, I'm not a huge fan of anything that he could bring in here, except for possibly Meddling Mage if he just wants more stuff to put equipment on.
And you see Taylor's sideboard. The last card is where I'm going to start. I'm actually going to start bottom up. Reminds me of Andrew Schneider here. 4 copies of Lava Spike to go along with 3 Surgicals, 2 Smash to Smithereens, 2 Pyroblast, the Price of Progress, Flusterstorm, 1 Sulfuric Vortex, 1 copy of Sulfur Elemental. Now, we know that those Price of Progresses are coming up. The question is what's coming in.
Well, I know that a lot of Blue-Red Delver players in normal matchups, non-combo, non-storm, non-reanimator, non-sneak and show, those kind of matchups, like to cut a lot of permission and just turn into a burn deck, which is why you see something as odd looking as 4 copies of Lava Spike. He's going to want to supplement that with 2 copies of Smash and Smithereens to fight over equipment. He may want the Pyroblast, although I suspect those are for more dedicated combo matchups. He's certainly going to want a Sulfuric Vortex, a potential haymaker against Joe's Esper Stoneblade build. And 1 Sulfur Elemental, I suspect, will come in as well, as that's an effective way of fighting Lingering Souls.
So we'll see how both players do sideboard here. And again, as we do find out matches and how they are going, we'll definitely let you guys know at home. Again, our matches between Adam Franzi playing Sneak and Show, John Wiley playing Bug Delver. That's our 5 versus 4. We've got Edward Fender playing Dark Depths with Jund, of course, with it. Against Thomas Graves, Louisville native, playing Reanimator, and then Ken Crocker, Blue Red Delver, the only person to give Bernal a loss in this tournament. He's your 7th seed, playing against James Baker, Esper Stoneblade, a more traditional take, as Bernal's version is a little bit different. A lot of basics for back to basics and some other crazy things going on here. But he gets down a game against Blue Red Delver in a game it looked like he really did have control of. So,
yeah. And, Joe was just sort of bottlenecked on total resources that game, which is why, what I was saying, even though it looks bad when you're flipping over those kind of spells to Goblin Guide, it's probably better than flipping over lands.
So we will see both players finishing shuffling up here. We'll see how things are going to go. Again, I still think that Bernal is the favorite in this matchup. I think things are just, advantageous for him. And he got off to a great start that game. I think, again, just the back-to-back draws of Lightning Bolt into Snapcaster Mage, flashing back Lightning Bolt. A little bit unlucky there. That's something that can happen. And then he just bricked off a bunch, drawing lands and back to basics.
Dennis's sideboard for this matchup is excellent, though. Make no mistake about it. The burn conversion is very good against Joe's build here. Getting to remove the inefficient counterspells is also powerful. And the Sulfuric Vortex and potentially the Sulfur Elemental as well are singletons that could be really powerful against a certain class of Joe's draws. So things, I think the matchup is overall favorable for Joe, but I would definitely want to be in Dennis's seat now, as I believe his deck improves more in the post-board games than Joe's does. And Dennis, gets to be on the play for at least a game 3.
So let's see what we will see happen. Again, Bernal, your number 1 seed overall in the tournament. Lost in round number 3, 1 out all the way. Wasn't able to draw in the final round with Alex Bertoncini. Does win that match. Bertoncini ends up in 9th place after breakers. So that's why Bernal is your number 1 seed right now. Did not want to risk it with the draw. Seems like it was a good idea. He probably could be in 9th and 10th place because we had, the same amount of people from 6th into 9th.
Yep.
With the same points.
10th, I think. I think it was
6th and 10th, yeah.
Went down to 10th.
So, drawing in the last round, not a good idea. Bernal risked it. He did get the win. And now he's sitting at the 1 seed. He is down a game. Dennis Taylor breaking serve here is a pretty big deal.
Both players keep.
An island start here for Bernal. Going to go down to 19 via the Flooded Strand. We'll see if there's anything to do with that mana. Maybe a Ponder, Brainstorm, Preordain, who knows.
And I'm wondering if Dennis is going to be a little more liberal in this game about getting Volcanic Islands under the assumption that Joe has removed back to basics from his deck.
I think he could be okay doing it. You see Lingering Souls, Supreme Verdict. Lingering Soul's great in this matchup.
Well, it's really good against a class of Dennis's draws, and when Dennis has a bunch of counter spells in his deck, Lingering Souls is excellent. It's really good against cards like Spell Piercing Daze, attritioning those out. If you're working under the assumption that Dennis has cut those and become a faster burn deck, Lingering Souls becomes a little bit less powerful.
You see Bernal taking a good long look at that Ponder, because this is really going to set the stage for how the rest of this game is going to go. And it's hard to want to shuffle this away. I mean, I don't know how many lands he has in his hand. Goblin Guy can help facilitate that, but at the same time, he's going to be stuck drawing those cards, so Goblin Guy's not actually going to hit any lands. You see Joe kind of looking at Lingering Souls going, man, this card is great in this matchup. Am I supposed to actually shuffle this away? Tough decision for the kid. And he's going to keep him.
All right. Joe can't say no.
With how good Lingering Souls in this matchup, I'd be hard-pressed to say no, too, honestly. Seems like it's absolutely great here. So let's see how Taylor does want to start this game. You see Bernal does have his sideboard Engineer Explosives, also has the Detention Sphere in his hand, too, so he's got removal.
And a full spread of basics, too.
Mm-hmm.
He has a Plains and a Swamp, so.
Got a quick update for you guys on our 2 versus 7. James Baker, Esper Stoneblade, up a game over Ken Crocker, Blue, White, Red Delver. We'll see how that rest of that match does play out. See a Ponder here from Taylor to get things started. So a little bit of manipulation. You see Volcanic Island come down right now.
And Joe's draw is definitely not prepared to handle a Sulfur Elemental if Dennis finds his 1 copy.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be a big card here. Haven't seen Sulfur Elemental in the sideboards for a really long time, actually.
I'm sure it's more of an anti-death and taxes card.
Sure.
A lot of one-toughness creatures, ones that you care about, too. Blue-Red Delver, rather, one of the few decks in the format that cares about both Mother Runes and Thalia.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure it's more dedicated to that, but running into a bunch of Lingering Souls, not bad either.
Yeah, not so bad at all. Ponder going to bring that card to Taylor's hand. There is the Plains for Bernal, passing the turn back. So Taylor's going to untap. He'll take a draw step. Volcanic Island, numero dos. There's a polluted Delta hiding out in his hand as well. Looks like he's got a Delver Secrets, a couple burn spells, and lightning bolt, chain lightning. Taylor going to go down to 19, tie the game up right now. See what Landy wants to search out. Again, you said he might be a little bit more liberal with his Volcanic Islands.
Well, it's a risk. You know, there's a bit of a cat and mouse game because if Joe suspects Dennis plays that way, then maybe he's back to really wanting back to basics and all that. But I would assume that, you know, if I was in Dennis's seat, that Joe had just removed them.
Taylor going to search up an island instead of his non-basic.
It also depends on the opportunity cost. If Dennis doesn't feel it costs him anything to get the island, then he might as well.
And there's a Delver Secrets passing the turn back. Joe's going to draw a card, sets a Preburner. So he's through his Ponder now. He's going to start off with the Lingering Souls. See if this does resolve. Well, we've seen Taylor fight over this before. There are your Tom Martell tokens, pass the turn back. So checking for Blackjack. No good. So Delver just sitting as a 1-1.
And this is either one of Dennis's 3-mana sideboard cards here. Either the Sulfuric Vortex or the Sulfur Elemental would be excellent in this spot.
So let's see what Taylor's up to on this particular turn. Does have that Volcanic Island as his third land drop. Looks like he's going to start off with a little manipulation. Brainstorm in the main phase, a good place to cast it. Going to add 3 more cards to his hand. You see Bolt, I think another copy of Volcanic Island added to the grip. So he's got to put some cards back, but he's got a lot of damage going upstairs.
Yeah, like we said, the sideboard games are a lot about converting into a burn deck.
We do have a quick update for you guys. Another match here. Adam Franzi with Sneak and Show does defeat John Wiley playing Bug Delver. So we're going to see him play the winner of this particular match. We'll see how that goes. Good old Sneak and Show. Been a little while since we've seen that deck.
Yeah, I mean, we're usually, you know, one in the top 8 of a lot of our opens, but
I feel like it's really been dominating recently.
certainly not to the extent that it was middle of last year.
Yeah, that's true.
You see Joe with his 1 engineered explosives here, debating about whether he wants to play that or Lingering Souls. Does not have a 4th land, a couple 4-mana spells in his hand, including Jace.
Engineer Explosives on 1. Going to use the Plains to do that. And that is going to blow up the Delver of Secrets and a Grim Lavamancer. So away go the 2 creatures. Fantastic explosives there from Bernal. Attack for 2. And so now he is in the driver's seat right now. But a lot of damage could be coming towards his head momentarily.
Yeah.
There you do see the new school art of Engineered Explosives from Modern Masters. The one that Bernal used, the old school one from 5th Dawn. The Sunburst mechanic from that set. I feel like I'm dating myself.
Not really. That's like middle of my career.
No, it was like 2004, I think, or 2005. It's 2014, dude. It was a long time ago. See, Lingering Soul is going to get hard cast here. So 2 more Spirit Tokens going to come into play after Taylor did just get a Grim Lavamancer on the table. Bernal, got to be quick, because here comes the burn.
Yep.
16
We're
is where
starting to
Lightning Bolt's
race.
going to put him. I'm sure you're familiar with this feeling. We're going upstairs,
Yeah.
folks.
What do you got? A lot of really powerful stuff and a lot of value in your graveyard and some other cards in your hand. All right, well, we're going to start. We're going to ignore all that. You have fun over there.
Yeah.
I'm going to do my own thing.
I am going upstairs with these spells. Yep, here's a Chain Lightning. 13.
You no longer have cards in play or in your hand. You just have a number next to your head.
Yep.
We're going to see what amount of work we can do there.
Bernal going to untap, and I'm sure Bernal knows that, okay, I got to get moving here. Force of Will in his hand. He has a Jace as well, draws a Flooded Strand, can flash back for those Lingering Souls if he wants to. Flooded Strand will let him search out an Underground Sea, and he can flash back both of them if he wants to try to up the clock. What he needs, really, though, is that GT.
Yeah, although Dennis is sitting with Smash the Smithereens in hand. And Joe, I mean, even just drawing a fetch land here and going from 13 to 12 is potentially a critical flashpoint. So Joe would really like to not have to use a fetch land here, but there may be no way to avoid it.
And going to 12 is really quite poor. But you mentioned he might not have any way around it. I think that's what he might be thinking about right now, too, is can I afford to actually use this fetch land? Because you go from 13 to 12 against this stack, that cuts a whole turn. Cuts a whole burn spell, too.
Right. Well, this is what I was talking about with Lingering Souls. Sure, it's still plenty efficient and powerful. And in game one, when you're trying to wear down Dennis's soft permission, it's about the best card you could ask for. But now with Dennis converted into a burn deck, they are not nearly as powerful as they were in the first game.
So there is a Flooded Strand. I think this is going to be a Detention Sphere. Yeah, he's got to get that Jace out of here.
Yeah, and he is just not willing to sacrifice that fetch land unless he absolutely has to.
Now, do not forget with the Detention Sphere, it's a you may ability. So what it does is it comes into play and it targets, and if, let's say for Taylor, for example, to kill his own Grim Lavamancer, the only target that he could target is, of course, Lingering Souls, but he doesn't have to use it. He doesn't have to actually use it.
Right.
So a little bit different from effects we've seen like that in the past. So Lavamancer is going to fire away. It's going to put Bernal down to 11, and that's going to be in detention. And burn you. Put you to 8.
It's a sweat.
Bernal does have Force of Will and a blue card in Jace.
Yeah, I mean, Dennis has to draw really well from here to win the game, but...
Yeah, there's a Snapcaster Mage in hand. That's not so bad. This is a Burns. Nope, that's a Goblin Guy. Take it back. Interesting. I wonder if you do anything about that. I don't know if you want to use Force of Will on this.
No,
I don't think you do. Reveal, there's an Underground Sea. All right.
it's no more efficient than any of the burn spells here, and he can just use a blocker next turn to actually cover it that way.
All right, Bernal's going to go down to 6. He's going to untap. He drew an Underground Sea off the Goblin Guy. Now he draws a Swords to Plowshares. That could be a big one. He could go targeting his own token with that to gain some life. We'll see if that play comes up here. Yeah, you got to get a little creative.
Oh, for sure. I really like the way that as Joe is being so disciplined with the lands that he's getting and with not sacking the special lands until he absolutely has to. Every point of life matters.
See if he's going to keep the aggression up here. Again, he does have Lingering Souls in his graveyard that he can flash back 2 copies of that. Does have the black mana there along with the blue and the white. He's got 3 mana, potentially 4 with Flood Strand, potentially 5 if he decides to play an Underground Sea. And as we know, he probably doesn't have to fear Price of Progress after sideboard.
And certainly not with the lands that Dennis is at the table. Pretty safe to assume that's no longer a factor.
So Bernal kind of doing some math here, figuring out, all right, where am I attacking? How many creatures am I attacking with? What's the math that adds up here? Right now, if he just goes attack, 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 that's a 3-turn clock. But is he going to get to play 3 more turns in this game? That's the question.
And 2 cards still left in Dennis's hand, too, that he has to worry about.
Now, fortunately for us at home, we know what those 2 cards are. Snapcaster Mage and Smash the Smithereens. Smash the Smithereens currently off right now. That could change if Bernal does draw an equipment. But for right now, that's not really doing very much. But Snapcaster Mage is still pretty good right now.
Yep. Cantrip in the graveyard, and what we're actually more likely to see is one of those lightning bolts get flashed back.
Well, all aboard the Tom Martell train. We're coming into the red zone. Going to put Taylor down to 7. Bernal did play the Underground Sea. Again, I don't think there's going to be a punishment for that. The question is, what does he want to do with the Underground Sea? And quick update for you guys here. 6 versus 3. Thomas Graves does defeat Edward Fender. We had a feeling Reanimator was going to get by Jund Depths, and it does so again. So if you guys were looking for some Life from Loam action, you're going to have to go somewhere else because no more Jund Depths this evening. Reanimator, big creatures for cheap, will be playing later on this evening.
Waiting for the winner of our Esper Blade versus Blue White Red Delver match.
Correct.
Over in the 2-7 bracket.
And James Baker is up a game over there. So a flashback of Lingering Soul is going to put 2 more creatures into play here for Bernal. And let's see what else Bernal wants to do in this turn. I think he might be giving consideration to actually flashing back again.
Yep. I mean, it does give him a blocker for Goblin Guide and still lethal on the way back. With Force of Will left over in his hand and Swords of Plowshares if something funky goes on. So this is a pretty good setup.
So 4 more Spirit Tokens are going to come into play. Dennis Taylor, again, does have Snapcaster Mage, but not going to cast it on the end step. He's looking to draw something. I don't know what that something is.
I think he's probably looking for Sulfur
That'd be good.
Joe has it covered, of course, with his Force of Will. But
No, No.
Oh, that thing's uncounterable.
That
right?
thing has split
Right.
second. He
That's
has
split second, that's
nothing
right.
covered.
Right.
Yeah.
Split second.
You take your force of will elsewhere when it comes to Sulfur Elemental. See, Dennis, I think, is going to take a look at his sideboard here to make sure that he knows what his outs are. That's exactly what he's doing right now.
I'm surprised he didn't fire off that Snapcaster Mage at the end of the
Me
turn. 'Cause
too.
It feels
Me
like
too.
this game is not going to go on for that many more turns. How much better of a target are you going to get than Lightning Bolt?
And it has the real potential here to choke himself on mana by
Yeah.
doing that, not being able to play every spell in one turn. So we'll see what Dennis Taylor's able to find here. It's I think it's quite obviously not Sulfur Elemental.
Right.
I think that we know for sure. Again, Smash Smithereen, Snapcaster Mage, and a mystery card.
Dennis going through the permutations here, but I don't think there's a way for him to... He may be able to survive this turn if he forces a block and a removal spell to survive this turn, but there might not be a long-term plan here.
Problem here is it looks like to me a Bolt might have to go towards a Spirit Token.
Right, that's... Yeah, exactly.
And if that's the case, that's bad news because that's not going towards Bernal's head. And it's going to take more burn spells to get the job done. So what we might see, and this is a Force of Will, countering Snapcaster Mage. So Joe goes down to 5. Now this is interesting because if Taylor had just burn spell, Joe would be dead.
Yeah, but I don't think Joe believes it,
Yeah.
based on just body language and how Dennis has played the last couple of turns.
I think he's basically saying, you know what, it's going to have to be Bolt, or Bolt Chain to beat me, and I don't think you have that.
I don't think so.
So he's going to chump block the Goblin Guide, still leaving him with 7 Spirit Tokens in play. Taylor conveniently at 7 life. Bernal sitting at 5, pretty low. And that is going to do it. So Joe Bernal is going to even this up between him and Dennis Taylor. Taylor hoping to draw Sulfur Elemental, but it not being there, checking the top card of his deck, almost punishing himself, seeing what it is, but it was not there. So Bernal does even things up. Esper Stoneblade versus Blue-Red Delver. Deck list being given back to the players so they can reanalyze things. And we'll see what happens in our third game. Again, quick updates for you guys on how things are going. You'll see the sideboards on the screen as well, in case you want to see how players will sideboard here in this matchup. But again, Adam Franzi does win his match over John Wiley. So Sneak and Show is going to play the winner here between Bernal and Taylor. And then we've got Edward Fender. He was defeated in 2 pretty quick ones by Thomas Graves. Reanimator going to be playing the winner of Ken Crocker, Blue-Red Delver, and James Baker, Esper Stoneblade. And those players are still in game numero dos with James Baker up again with Esper Stoneblade.
Curious to see if Dennis maybe goes back to his sideboard as a little bit of soft permission, but if I were him, I would keep the deck mostly the same from what we saw in game 2. It seemed like the right structure, just
came up a little short.
a little bit short.
Yeah. That's all it is. Don't forget at the conclusion of this round, we'll announce the 3-month winner of Premium as well. During the semifinals, 6 months. Finals, 12 months, of course. Then a winner's interview on the sideboard with Ruben Bressler, trophy presentation. And then we have to leave one of my favorite cities in the country.
Well, you don't have to leave right away, right?
I suppose I could stay.
Yeah, you can hang out for a bit.
I might stay. Apparently WWE Raw is in Dayton.
I don't
tomorrow.
know Ohio's geography that well.
Well, Dayton is not very far from Columbus. It's about, I believe it's like 90 minutes. I might somehow find myself there. Surprise, surprise. Like, I just can't get enough.
Yeah.
I know who I am. I'm a kid at heart. See if these players are going to change anything in their configurations here. Again, the sideboard's on the screen for Bernal and Engineer Explosives, the Pithing Needle, Sword of Feast and Famine, 2 copies of Meddling Mage, an Ocean Thief, 2 Flusterstorm, Misdirection, 2 Swan Song, and 4 copies of Thoughtseize. Anything change when he's on the draw?
I'm struggling to think of what he may want to switch up here.
I don't think anything too much would happen. I don't like Meddling Mage, don't really love Sword in this matchup. I love that Sword if it said Fire and Ice, as opposed to Feast and Famine.
I mean, maybe I would want to have fewer copies of Supreme Verdict in my deck. I'm not sure.
It's like really expensive, especially when you're on the draw.
But that's really the only card that seems like there's a really different valuation.
Maybe try to use Meddling Mage as a way to trade.
Yeah, maybe Counterspell gets worse when you're on the draw.
Yep.
I mean, the expensive reactive cards.
Okay.
Those are the ones that I would call into question.
Thoughts on Swan Song? You get to counter a burn spell, and then the token's probably irrelevant because you have Lingering Souls?
Well, you have to have lingering souls for that to be the case.
You do have to, yeah.
If you don't have lingering souls, then the token really matters.
Yeah. Not sure how creative Joe feels like he needs to get in this matchup. I don't know if... I mean, it's my belief that this matchup is probably favorable for him. I mean, that being said, I've never played the matchup before, so I don't know how favorable it truly is. And, if game one is any representation, he can certainly lose, and that game was close, too.
Yeah. No, I think the matchup's close. I would rather be on the Esper Stoneblade side, but it is close. I think in the post-board games, I would want to be in Dennis's seat, but I think Joe has a pretty noticeable edge game one. His deck's just very good at attritioning away soft counter spells.
Yeah.
Lingering Souls is especially well suited for that.
And of course, if you guys do want to join in on the conversation, please do so at SCG Live, hashtag SCGCOL. We're checking your tweets all throughout the rest of this evening. Fire away. Chat with Patrick and I as we do make our way through these elimination rounds. Before we do, call it quits here in, what did Ruben say, Cowtown? Is that what they call this place?
Cowtown or C-Bus?
C-Bus is accurate. The Buckeye State.
C-Bus isn't even a nickname.
No.
Those are just letters that are contained in the name of the thing.
Yeah. That'd be like calling me C-Rick.
Right.
Which is ridiculous.
Right.
And don't ever do that.
D. Wade's not a nickname. That's just
his first initial and last name.
Right. So I don't count that as a nickname. But Cowtown apparently is.
That just sounds mean, though. Cowtown?
No, that's fine. What's wrong with that?
I don't know. It doesn't feel right. This doesn't seem like a home of cows.
No, if the view outside of the hotel was any indicator.
It was nice out there. What are you trying to say?
I don't know. There's a little smokestack going. Not a lot of farmland,
Yeah. I mean, it's a college town.
Sure.
There were definitely no cows.
Nothing says college town like a smokestack. That's how you know you're really in a place of higher learning.
Look, man, don't come in here trash talking Ohio.
I'm
don't
not saying,
you dare come in here trash talking Ohio.
Who am I to judge? I'm from the smokestack capital of the United States, but
yeah, you're from a garbage state as far as I'm concerned. Jersey is garbage.
Dude, you have no idea.
I think I have an idea. I've been a couple times. I remember the Grand Prix that was held in Toms River, New Jersey. You proud of that one?
Toms River is fine.
High school gym, really?
Oh yeah, that's New Jersey. New Jersey is definitely responsible for Wizards' organized play on that one.
The old high school gym where that Grand Prix was at. I drove there from Indianapolis to play. Bernal's going to take a mulligan here. As is Taylor, so both players going to go down to, looks like 6 cards.
You know how irrational that argument is, right? Man, Honolulu is such a dump. Were you there at the Grand Prix? They had it at a Denny's.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not Honolulu's fault if that was true. That's the Denny's fault. And it's not even really the Denny's fault. It would be the organized play tournament organizer's fault.
Well, I have to blame it on someone.
Sure, I'm just saying put the blame where blame's due.
Yeah, or I can just make fun of the gym some more. It was a pretty big gym.
It was.
I will say that. It did hold a lot of players. I'm trying to remember who won. I think Richie Hohen won that Grand Prix, actually, if memory serves. I remember I drove up to that Grand Prix. It was a late night decision. We've all had these in our Magic career. Jerry Thompson decided, hey, myself, Nate Price, coverage reporter for WotC, and Adam Yurchik, we're going to go to that tournament. Now, I was at Purdue, and Jerry drove to Indy with Nate to come pick me up. And then Indy is an hour south of Purdue, so they drove north. Then we drove south. We drove to Columbus to pick up Yurchik, which I think was kind of on the way, maybe. And then we drove up to Jersey. Really well. And I think that was like 11 or 12 hours.
Grand Prix Toms River is also one of my favorite Magic memories because my mother came down and she had kind of a conversation with my good friend Kenji Samura, even though neither of them really speak each other's language. So my mother and Kenji interacting is one of my all-time favorites.
I can only imagine.
Because you could tell both of them were thinking, this is really weird. But Patrick thought it was important for us to meet one another, and therefore we should try to make a go of it.
Well, Kenji was pretty awesome, so I do understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big Kenji fan. Wish I saw him playing Magic more often.
Well-deserved Hall of Famer.
Yeah, not even close. The fact that Kenji played in a Grand Prix, at Grand Prix Montreal, I'll never forget this, told 4 people over the course of the day, no, pay for your packs. I don't want to beat you that way. And still top 4 the Grand Prix, where 4 people were just like, I forgot, I lose. He's like, no, just pay. I'm going to beat you honestly. And still either top 8 or top 4 the Grand Prix. He was definitely playing elimination rounds. It's insane to me.
I see a Volcanic Island and a Goblin Guide in this hand, so there's no way this gets mulligan.
One of those cards you're very familiar with. Island going to go to the grip, undoing the mulligan, basically.
Yeah.
Stoneforge Mystic, the draw step. See Marsh Flash brought to the hand, Tundra as well. The big question is, does he have swords? He wants to control the Goblin Guide a little bit here with Marsh Flats. Taylor going to take a draw, Snapcaster Mage. You see a Brainstorm over there as well. I'm going to start the show with Brainstorm. That will resolve. So 1, 2, and 3 cards coming here for Dennis. Lightning Bolt among them. You also see, it looks like we see a Forked Bolt and a Grim Lavamancer. And there's a Lava Spike, so he's on the burn you plan.
Oh, he's all in on that. Does he have a second land?
I don't think so. That was Brainstorm's job. You had one job.
You're fired.
Attack, explosives. Bernal going to take 2, go to 16. It feels like if Goblin Guy gets in 6 points of damage, Dennis is probably going to win this one.
Well, I don't
That's
know.
what it feels like.
I mean, his development is really stunted by not having a second land, and Joe does have Stoneforge missing in his hand and a Force of Will. So he might be able to just set up a very fast Stoneforge with Force of Will backup.
For Batterskull, maybe?
Yeah, and even if Dennis has multiple kill spells in his hand, he may not have enough mana to fight over everything.
Okay.
If he has his second land drop there, I agree with you. He's in a very good position, but Joe's hand is really well suited to punish Dennis for missing his second land drop.
I wonder if Bernal actually wants this explosives that he could draw.
Yeah,
Looks like he's planning out the turns right now in his head, right?
Yep, he's taking the explosives.
All right. 15. Probably basic. It's kind of interesting, like you said, the game inside the game, because I think Taylor boards out his price of progresses. So as a result, Joe can search for non-basics if he wants to, but if he's wrong, it's an absolute disaster.
Right.
So there's Stoneforge.
There's still a risk-reward assessment you need to do, even if you're pretty confident that cards like Back to Basics and Price of Progress aren't in each other's players' decks.
It's going to be really telling to see what Joe gets. It's going to be Batterskull, so it looks like he's in the plan that you mentioned of, all right, Force of Will, your next burn spell, almost assuredly. Goblin Guide, come on in. And after Joe's done shuffling his deck and lets Dennis shuffle it, we'll see what the top card's going to be. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Dennis here try to burn that Stoneforge Mystic with a chain or a lightning bolt, Joe countering it and get a Batterskull into play. And if you get a Batterskull into play against this deck, it is really tough to lose.
I don't know if Joe has another blue card, unfortunately, to pair with his Force of Will, so.
There's a blue card on top. Can he take that? Bzz. All right, Forked Bolt.
But still, again, critically, no second land. And now that he has another blue card, he may be able to set all this up.
There's an Engineer Explosives. Gonna blow this up. Okay, so this is interesting because Joe drew another blue card with the Force Will to go along with the Force Will already in his hand. So he could have maybe taken the line that we mentioned, which is establish Stoneforge Mystic last turn. He chose not to. So now he's forcing this. He's going to go down to 12 to do that.
Yeah, he's just trying to set up a window for his Stoneforge to resolve. Oh, and he just drew Fluster Storm, which is so good here.
Yeah, that's insanely good draw. Well, Joe's playing at a pretty quick pace.
And the thing is here, Joe's also happy making these trades and keeping his life total as high as possible because he's getting to the point where he can actually hard cast the Batterskull. That's starting to get into play here.
That's very realistic.
If, Dennis ever fails to fight over a Stoneforge Mystic, then Joe is really favored to win the game. And even if Dennis is able to successfully fight over this, then we're just getting closer and closer to the spot where Joe can just cast Batterskull.
All right, there's a Marsh Flats. And another Stoneforge.
So now this requires
2 spells.
Right.
And again, it's a situation, right, where if your 2 spells are going towards the Stoneforge Mystics, that's a win for Joe.
Oh, absolutely. Again, 4 lands and Batterskull in hand, so.
And see, this is why I don't play burn decks, because I never know where to send the burn. Do I take it to your creature, or do I just keep going upstairs? I never know.
Oh, if I was Dennis, I think that I would not have brainstormed on turn 2 and just played a Lavamancer. As long as he had reasonably productive things to do with his mana, I would have waited for a second land to brainstorm.
Okay.
And Lavamancer would have been a fine thing to add to his board. Although I guess once he sees engineered explosives, maybe it's different. But he did brainstorm before combat, so.
So it may have been the sequencing of events that does Taylor in here. But at the end of the day, people might look at it as the batter skull.
Oh, in fairness, Joe's draw is excellent this game.
Yes.
I mean, he has all the tools he wants for this matchup.
So, Bernal going to activate that Stoneforge Mystic, put in the old batter skull, germ token trigger. Brian Bronduin, you are suited up. And we might get to see him put a GT into play as well. And it only takes one hit. That's all it takes.
Just one shot. 4 life at this stage of the game. There's no way Dennis is going to be able to make that up.
Now here's a brainstorm.
Doesn't need to add that second GT just yet, and he would really like to hold up his Flusterstorm because, of course, there's a risk of getting smash and smithereens here, so.
Doesn't want to get too crazy.
Right.
No reason to.
You don't need to add too much more to your board from here
Yep.
if you're Joe to win this one.
So he's going to leave Flusterstorm available. Doesn't need to put the GT in. You see Joe's hand. He's got Flusterstorm and Counterspell in the grip. You see a sacrifice here from Taylor. And it's a really, really smart play by Joe. It would be so easy to say, all right, end of turn. Slide in my GT, slide in my batter skull, untap. Let's get you. But that's not how things are going to break down here. You see Taylor's going to search out a mountain with that Arid Mesa. Joe playing very, very smart here. Shouldn't surprise you to see him as the #1 seed.
And there's the smash. And Joe being really rewarded for his discipline here.
Taylor thinking maybe I'm in the clear, but the answer is definitely not. Smash Smithereens going to be put on the stack, and it's not going to be countered not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 with all those storm triggers. So Flusterstorm says, kindly leave.
And now we are at the point of no return.
This is the point you've been at.
I've been here myself. It's not good.
As a red player, you got to get the old batter skull to the face, huh?
Yep.
That's no fun for anyone, and Taylor's about to find that out. Take an attack here for 5. He's going to go on 14, but more importantly, Bernal's going to go up to 15. As you do see Bernal's hand here of a Jace of Counterspell. It's actually the Jace artwork on the Counterspell, known as Jite. And he is sitting pretty comfortably here. Might be going on to play against Adam Franzi in the semifinals. Again, Franzi did win his match over John Wiley with Bug Delver, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Taylor concedes the game. Joe Bernal does win the match 2-1. Esper Stoneblade, a little different take on it, of course, with a whole lot of basics and back to basics. Defeats Blue-Red Delver 2-1. He's going to be going on to play against Adam Franzi in the semifinals.
Really well navigated game by Joe. Understood what his role was in the matchup, was very careful about playing around Dennis's various tricks, got his shop set up, and was able to take down that game and the match.
Really